Guys, today I will be sharing how to make custard buns, paradise clouds. For the custard, we need this is 100 ml of cream, 3 egg yolks, 2 tablespoons of corn flour or cornstarch, 260 ml of milk, 4 tablespoons of sugar, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. In a pot, we're going to combine all the ingredients except for the vanilla. So that's the milk, followed by the cream, the egg yolks, sugar, and finally the corn flour or cornstarch. Give this a mix. And then we're going to move into a stove with the heat setting medium heat. It is important to continuously stir this so the egg yolks will not curdle. Once you notice that it starts getting thick, it's time to use the whisk to guarantee that this custard will be very smooth. Now, it's time to use the whisk. Once it thickens up like this, we can immediately take this out of the heat. And then, finally add 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Transfer this into a heat-proof bowl. Now cover the custard with cling wrap. Make sure that the cling wrap is touching the surface of the custard so it doesn't form a skin. Now let this sit in the fridge while we're making the bread. This is 1 packet of yeast, which is 7 to 8 grams. 2/3 cup of milk, 60 grams of melted butter, 1/4 cup plus 1 tablespoon of sugar, 1 teaspoon of salt, 3.5 cups of bread flour, and 2/3 cup of warm water. So to begin, combine the 1 tablespoon of sugar and the warm water. To this, we're going to add the yeast. Give it a mix and let this rest for about 5 to 10 minutes or until the yeast is bubbly, just like this. Now, I have a stand mixer, but if you don't have a stand mixer, you can certainly use your hands to knead the dough. So, combine the milk, butter, the yeast mixture, the 1/4 cup of sugar. Combine the flour and the salt. Give it a quick mix, and then add half of the flour into the wet ingredients. At this point, we can add the rest of the bread flour. At this point, we're going to continue kneading this for about 8 to 10 minutes or until the dough is elastic and smooth, just like this. I have a bowl with a little bit of oil on it, about half a tablespoon to 1 tablespoon. Now form the dough into a ball. Then roll this dough into the oil. Cover this with cling wrap and let it rest in a warm spot for about 1 to 1.5 hours or until it doubles in size. So after about an hour, the dough has doubled in size. We're going to cut the dough into small pieces. If you have a kitchen scale, I divided my dough about 50 grams each. Tuck the ends of the dough underneath. Then using your hand, rub the dough against your work surface to create a smooth ball. Just like this. So continue doing this until you finish with all the dough. And this is what they look like. Now cover this with cling wrap and let it rest in a warm spot for at least 20 minutes. This is now the custard. I'm going to mix this and then transfer this into a piping bag. After 20 minutes, we're going to flatten the dough into a disc. Make sure that you do this properly because if you don't flatten it well, the dough will expand while baking and you will lose the custard in the middle. So just flatten it well and then transfer this into a baking pan lined with parchment paper. So this is what they look like. Now I have a glass that I dipped in flour and I created indentation in the center of the dough disc. Now, pipe the custard in the center of the dough. If you don't have a piping bag, you can just spoon in the custard. And just before we cover this with cling wrap, I'd like to brush the side of the dough with fresh milk. And then we're going to cover this with cling wrap and let it rest for another 20 minutes. At this point, you will preheat your oven at 180 degrees Celsius. After 20 minutes, this is what it looks like. Now, before baking, I'm going to brush the sides again with fresh milk. And then bake this in a preheated oven at 180 degrees Celsius for about 15 to 17 minutes or until the side of the bread starts turning golden brown. And this is what it looks like after baking. Let it cool down completely before moving to the next step. For the icing, this is actually double the amount of what you'll need for the recipe. So I suggest cutting this half. So this is 1.5 cups of icing sugar. To this, I added 3 tablespoons of fresh milk. So if you're cutting this in half, you will need 3/4 cup of icing sugar and 1.5 tablespoons of milk. Combine the milk and the icing sugar until all the sugar is dissolved. Brush the icing on the side of the bread. This procedure is quite messy, so bear with me. Then cover the icing with desiccated coconut. With the desiccated coconut, you will need about half a cup to 3/4 cup of desiccated coconut. So continue doing this until you finish up with all your bread. And this is the finished product. I hope you give this a try. It's so easy to make, and I can guarantee that you're going to love this. And just to show you what it looks like inside when you cut the bread in half. This is very soft and very tasty. Do give it a try, and if you happen to make this, can you please send me a photo on my Facebook page, My Sweet Ambitions. Thank you so much for always watching and supporting my channel. I'll see you again next week. Bye!